We're going to go over how to do some unit conversions and dimensional analysis. And so we have 4 problems, A through D, we're going to go over. So we'll start with the first one, where we're going to convert 70 inches into centimeters. And whenever we start one of these problems, it's good to sort of write down our unit conversions. And so we have to look these up. If we look it up, we see 2.54 centimeters is equal to 1.0 inches. And I can look that up online or in our textbook, but that's the conversion factor we're going to use. Whenever we start a unit conversion, we're going to start with the number that's given. So in this case, we have 70.0 inches. And then we're going to multiply this by a unit conversion. And so we're multiplying it by a ratio. And the numbers we want to take in our ratio are here. Are these numbers here. And the key is we want our units to cross off. So here we want to change inches into centimeters. We want to end up with centimeters. So I'm going to put centimeters on the top of my fraction, inches on the bottom of our fraction. And then we're going to go to our unit conversion and say it's 2.54 centimeters, 2.54 to 1.0 inches. And then we can multiply that out. If we want to see it on a calculator, here it is multiplied out. We have 2.54. I'll go the other way. So 70.0 times 2.54, and we get 177.8. The last thing I'm going to do is round it to sig figs. We have 3 sig figs, and so I'm going to write this as 178 centimeters to the correct number of sig figs. And there's our first problem. When we look at this, we can notice our units cross off, inches and inches cross off, and we're left with centimeters. So in our second problem, we're dealing with 225 miles per hour to go to kilometers per hour. So the first thing we want to remind ourselves is when you have a phrase such as miles per hour or kilometers per hour, right? So miles, that per is really divide by. So this is really miles divided by hour. And so we're starting with 225 miles per hour. We need a conversion factor, right? We need to multiply by a conversion factor so that our final units are kilometers per hour. And when we look at this, notice the per hour stays the same. So we don't have to do anything. What we do need to convert is miles into kilometers. And so that's the conversion factor we need to look up. So I can look that up. And when I look that up, I can see 1.0 kilometers is equal to 0.621 miles. This is the conversion factor we want to use. So now we can come back to our problem. We want miles to cross off, so I'm going to put miles on the bottom of my fraction and kilometers on the top. And again, I do that, so miles divided by miles equals 1, so those go away. And now we just fill in our numbers. So we have this in green, we have 1.0 kilometers divided by 0.621 miles. And now we can plug this into our calculator. So we can pull this up. We're going to have 225 divided by 0.621, and we get 362.318. Again, watch your sig figs. We have 3 sig figs in this problem, so I'm going to round that for a final answer to 362 kilometers per hour. All right, so there's the value, and here's our units. We can go on to number 3. And here we're starting with 4.5 times 10 to the 5th milligrams. We want to go all the way to kilograms. So here's a case where we might be able to find a conversion factor from milligrams to kilograms. But this is a case it might be easier to do in multiple steps. And if you think about, do we know anything about milligrams? Well, you might recall that there are 1,000 milligrams is equal to 1 gram, and there's 1,000 grams in 1 kilogram. And so I'm actually going to set this up as a two-step process using both of these conversion factors. And again, we want to go from milligrams to kilograms. So I'm going to start with the number that's given, 4.5 times 10 to the 5th milligrams. And the first thing I'm going to do is multiply this and convert milligrams to grams. So I'm going to put milligrams on the bottom, grams on the top. We have 1 gram per 1,000 milligrams. And if I stop here, milligrams go away, and our answer would be in grams. But what I can do is now use our second conversion factor. And now I'm going to put grams on the bottom and kilograms on the top. And notice now, when I do this, my grams go away, and my final answer is going to be in kilograms. So the last thing left to do is put in we have 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams. That's our conversion factor here. And so now we can plug this into our calculator. So pull that up, and we can see we have 4.5 times 10 to the 5th. Sometimes an easier way to do this on the calculator is using this capital E function. That capital E means times 10 raised to some exponent, in this case 5. Then I take that and divide by 1,000. And I'm just going to do it again, divide by 1,000 for the second term. And this is going to equal 0.45. 2 sig figs, and we have 2 sig figs, so 0.45. Write that down, 0.45 kilograms. So finally, we have our speed of light problem. The speed of light is 3.8 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. And we want to convert that into miles per hour. Now in this case, we can start off by writing this 3.0 times 10 to the 8th meters. And recall that meters per second is really meters divided by seconds. So in this problem, we actually have two conversions because we want to change the meters to miles. But then we want to change our time in seconds to hours. So we have a couple different conversions we need to think about. So we could look those up. We can say, well, if we want to go meters to miles, we again might want to do this in a couple steps. And we might recall that we know that there is 1,000 meters is equal to 1 kilometer. And just as above, we looked at this, we said we can go back up and say 1 kilometer is equal to 0.621 miles. So I'm going to write that down here as well. We know 1.0 kilometers is equal to 0.621 miles. And we still have to convert seconds to hours, so I'm going to write down that conversion. And we can look that up, and in 1.0 hours, there are 3,600 seconds. Right, 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in a minute, so 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. So now we can set up our conversions. And we're going to have to use all three of those. So what we're going to do, so I'm going to start off. It doesn't really matter which one you do first. I'm going to start off, and I'm going to convert meters to kilometers. And so I got to get rid of meters. So meters go on the bottom, kilometers on the top. And our conversion factor says there are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. And check your units. In this case, meters would go away. If we stopped here, we'd be left with kilometers per second. So I'm going to add a second conversion. In this conversion, we're going to get rid of kilometers and go to miles. And so we can look at our conversion and see 0.621 miles per 1 kilometer. Kilometers go away. If we stopped here, our rate would be in miles per second. So next we want to get rid of the seconds and turn it into hours. We need to be a little careful here in that we want to get rid of seconds and turn it into hours, but seconds is on the bottom of our fraction here. So in order to cross it off, I'm going to put the 3600 seconds at the top and 1 hour at the bottom. Because remember, we want the seconds to cross off and we want to be left with miles per hour. So the hour on the bottom of the fraction. So now we can see our units. Oops, let's move that equal sign over. So our units are going to be in miles per hour. So the last thing that's left to do is just to calculate this. So I'm going to pull up our calculator. Hopefully this doesn't block everything on our screen. Good. So we're going to have 3.0. And again, I use the e function, which stands times 10 to the 8th. We're going to divide that by 1,000, multiply it by 0.621, and then multiply it by 3600. You could do these individually and hit equals each time, or you can do it as one line on your calculator, and we get this number here, which if we change to scientific notation, you can see 6.7 times 10 to the 8th. So we get 6.7 times 10 to the 8th miles per hour. So the speed of light is 6.7 times 10 to the 8th miles per hour. I hope that helped. Thank you.